parts of it are like no man's land. And you drive and you make a turn maybe off a different road and you find something. And that's the only way, to me, it's part of like this discovery.
This was about 2012. We were still dealing with the after effects of the 2008 recession. And even within Fort Worth, there were housing developments and commercial developments that had basically stopped in their tracks. And that notion of sort of leaving behind what at one point was valued also had a certain historical and cultural resonance that tends back into this institution's long interest in American cultural history. Well, you think of all the people who took the wagon trains to the west, they'd load up with all of this extra stuff. And the trails were littered with all sorts of furniture and foodstuffs and so on that people found it was too heavy to carry, it was a burden, and the material was just left out there. So in some ways, he's picking up on that long-standing tradition.
So there's a lot of things going out in the desert where people are just trying to survive. I made that portrait of that man in the bus. And as soon as I finished making that portrait of that man, a half an hour later, I made this portrait, you might say, of this house. I always think about this house and think about that man living in a bus, moving around. And so this is just a great coincidence of these two pictures coming together to me. So when I think of him, I think of this house. They're always a pair.
Anthony Hernandez is very good at pointing out to us what we tend to pass by or don't really notice. You know, we drive by an empty house and we tend not to think about it very much because we're going to that occupied house. You could come into these images and say, these are really ugly images, difficult to look at, but they're captivating in another way. You find yourself drawn in almost despite yourself. And then he adds all of these little tiny touches in terms of how he frames so beautifully or how he uses light, that little surprises that keep you coming back and saying, yes, there's a lot more than I ever expected. So much of art is about beauty, and particularly American art, that to show work that is about a different kind of beauty than we expect is a challenge for us, and that's part of the reason that we want to show this kind of work, because we want to expand the notions of beauty for our own audience.
To me, when I'm out there photographing, I have to really embrace that kind of place and situation, and I think that's part of who I am.